Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Now we're taking a look at Algorand, and this is an interesting one to me based on its price action here, and I want to thank you to my community very much for reaching out and asking that I cover this. You're all very awesome. Wouldn't be here without you. Just note, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research. I have years of trading experience. And my goal is to just essentially make sure that you learn to trade for a lifetime, right? The whole analogy of teaching you to trade for a lifetime instead of just one day, that's essentially the concept here, right? So we're going to look at best practice to help you find a good entry point and ideally learn something along the way and just all learn and grow together, okay? Now, I have a link in the description below for my Telegram community, my Patreon account if you'd like to show your support, as well as a Discord channel, and even $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager if you'd like to reference that. Moving forward, I'm going to have actual signal groups as well as live streams, so be on the lookout for that here in the next couple of weeks. Now, without further ado, let's just go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Algorand. And before we do, I'd like to preface with Bitcoin and Ethereum, kind of take a look at both of those first, just so we understand more specifically what's going on in the market, so we have a better, more well-informed decision when making an entry point, right? Because if you don't understand the big picture, it's really hard to understand, what's a good entry point or a good exit strategy, depending on, obviously, every situation. It's always different. So that's why we look at that. So let's go ahead and take a peek at Bitcoin first, okay? So Bitcoin, this is the 4-hour chart. Correction, this is a one-day chart. Apologize. We'll move over to the 4-hour chart because I like to look at the 4-hour because the moving averages, the ones you see here, the 200 and the 50. The 200 is this purple bar here, and the 50 is this kind of yellowish, orangish bar. And what this does is this tells us the average over the last 50 days what the price action has been. So the price right now is above the moving average. So that's a fantastic sign. We want to see that on Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin has an increased, it's above the moving average, that is a good sign that essentially, historically has proven to be a very strong support level. Of course, this works as a resistance line too, but we're finally out of the doghouse and we're up above right where it needs to be. So that being said, we got the 50-day moving average here, kind of working as a support. We do have a resistance level at 42,000, as well as a support level right down around 30,000 here on the bottom. Okay, that's kind of a wide range, of course, but that's how much it moved in the past, couple of weeks. So we really truly never know when it's going to hit its bottom, but the goal is that it moves upwards, hits 42,000, breaks, and next stop is the 200-day moving average, which is right at 45,800. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at for Bitcoin. Good news is we're making higher highs and the price action is looking to be fairly consistent. Okay, so it should be safe to presume that the $42,000 range will be tested after it tests the $40,500 range here, because there is a somewhat of a support level here. Well, previous support, major resistance level. Okay. So just paying attention to that moving forward. Now looking at Ethereum, this is the Ethereum chart. Same chart time frame. We're looking at 4 hours. And what this is telling us is that we are soon to test the actual resistance level again. So if you look at this right here, this was tested, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and the 9th time recently. Okay, so it's knocking on that door. The more often you test a resistance or support level, the more likely it's going to break over time. So looking at that there, that tells us we are probably in good shape to likely break that soon because, there's only so many times you can test a resistance level without it being broken. But great news is we're over the 50-day moving average, just like with Bitcoin. So it's kind of a similar scenario on Ethereum. Only difference is, Ethereum does better than Bitcoin when Bitcoin goes sideways. Okay, and when Bitcoin does well, then Ethereum has a tendency of taking off. So just keep that in mind. If we can see Bitcoin continue upwards to 42,000 and break that, and then hold above, we're likely to see a run from Ethereum here soon. Okay, so just want to point that out. Now let's go ahead and move on to Algorand, and what we'll do is we'll take a look at the one-day chart first. That's how I like to start off every review, just so we understand more specifically what the big picture looks like, and we understand where it's coming from and how it responds to Bitcoin, right? Because we had some really important dates recently with Bitcoin. So let's start with the 17th. April 17th was the first major sell-off. Okay, so we actually see a green day followed by a strong red day with Algorand. So that being said, we got these two bars here that essentially tells us that it was impacted by the first major Bitcoin sell-off. The 23rd essentially was the second time frame, and the 25th it ramped back up. So we do have a pretty normal movement here from Algorand during that time frame. We also have normal movement from the previous things here. In other words, Elon candle was on the 12th of May. That's right here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So the 12th of May is right here. That's the Elon candle, and this is the China candle as well. Okay, so the price was testing the 50-day moving average at the time, got rejected hard, pushed all the way down to the 200, and the 200 has been working as a pretty good support level, just with a slight variance. Okay, so just be mindful of that. All right, so all in all, right now, price is in really good shape for Algorand. Let's see what the RSI looks like. We are right around the halfway point. Okay, so good news is breaking above. That means that we'll likely see that work as a support. And little, fun fact for the RSI, when the price is over 50, that tends to work as a support level, and when it's under 50, it works as a resistance. So a lot of times the price will hold above or below for an extended amount of time. Okay, so regardless, this is again the one-day chart. I don't put a lot of weight into this because the fact that I feel the 4-hour chart is most effective. That's why I use that for Ethereum and Bitcoin. Set a baseline so we know what's going on, because these moving averages are the most effective on those time frames. Okay, so looking at the moving averages here, once again, the purple bar here is the moving average. It's a simple moving average, 200. So it's a 200-day moving average, and we got the 50 here as well in yellow. Now, as you can kind of see, it's a very similar pattern, similar movement to Bitcoin and Ethereum, only much more aggressive recently. So that tells me there's either some fundamentals in line there, or the price action's been held down for too long and it needs to adjust itself and become normalized. In other words, the average true range for Algorand is much higher than where it's at right now. So I mean, we see the price action kind of hovering in this range here normally. So I would say that $1.20 upwards of $1.60 is what we should expect to see the price here in the near future. So it'd essentially be my prediction. I know it's kind of loose, but I can tell you that we should continue to see that. And if we look closer here as well, we might identify a comfortable bull run. In other words, a bull run that is essentially going to not get retraced back down halfway, which they normally do. If it's a good bull run, we'll see short periods of consolidation. So we'll take a look at that here in a moment. One other thing to identify is the RSI is up over 70 and it's coming back down. That's pretty standard for a run like this. I don't always recommend selling as soon as you see the RSI up over 70, but this does imply that we may see a retracement. So just depending on your position, obviously hold if you're holding on for a long time. If you are say a short-term swing trader or a day trader, you may want to consider trimming some off the top because it might come back down. It's just a general rule of thumb. You don't have to, of course, but that's just a consideration. So we'll take a look at the 15-minute chart to identify what's going on within, but generally speaking, that's what you're looking for. But I do like this. If you see these 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, there's about four-hour time frames where the price action kind of stayed the same and or retraced back down a little bit. So that's actually comfortable. That's exactly what you want to see on a bull run. So that does imply that there's a good chance that the price could continue to increase based on that sentiment alone. Because when you see a bull run that's just like straight vertical, shoot to the moon, as some people would say, that's actually a bad thing because it has a tendency of coming crashing back down. But when you see a good bull run, a smooth run that just lasts days on end, those are the ones that have short periods of consolidation in between, and the price action has a chance to recover and calm down. But in this case, with Algorand, it does appear that the price is returning back to normal, which should be in the 120 to 160 range. That is its average true range. So moving on to the 15-minute chart. Here's what we do first. We disable the moving averages because I feel as if the simple moving averages are less effective on shorter time frames. It's proven that they're much more effective on larger time frames, which is why I prefer the 4-hour chart. So on the 15-minute or less, I disable those, and instead I enable my volume weighted average price and the EMA line. Okay. Now, just to clarify, if you're new to the channel, the VWAP is the volume weighted average price. That's essentially the blue line in the center, followed by the standard deviations above and below. Okay, so that little range there, when the price is in this range, it's comfortably increasing, or comfortably moving around rather. And if it goes too far outside that range, then it has a tendency of correcting itself. You can kind of see that right here. I'll explain in a moment, but the VWAP is essentially the volume expressed as a price over the last 24 hours. So if we see the volume here, over the last 24 hours, you can tell that the price action should be $1.08 right now. It's 108. So if you were to look at that and just kind of understand kind of how that works, $1.08 is what the price should be at, whereas the price action is $1.16. Okay, so it's about 8 cents higher than where the average volume has been. Now it's neither good nor bad. That just tells us that that's a support level right now, and it can work as a resistance level as well. So if you see this blue line, it's been working as a support with a slight variance pretty much, all day, if you will, right? So that's a good sign. We'd like to see that. Okay, so the VWAP I use as a support and resistance level. Instead of drawing your own lines, you can use that as a continuous, more reliable support and or resistance. So you only ever want to take entry when the price is above that line. Furthermore, EMA is this red line here. That's the exponential moving average. Those work a lot more effectively on time frames shorter than an hour. So 15 minutes makes perfect sense to use the EMA. I use the EMA 15. Others will use 9 and 20. So I just split the difference, use 1 instead of 2. It makes more sense, and it works better for me. But when the price is underneath the EMA line, that tells you that it is considered more of a bearish sentiment. And generally speaking, when you look at the price action, when the EMA line is above, or correction, the price is above the EMA line, that's more bullish, right? So as we can see here, we got a bull run here, and it kind of tapered off, lost VWAP and EMA, but recovered and came back up. Yeah, so there's just things to pay attention to. So what I like to recommend in scenarios like this is, how to take good entry and what to identify. First of all, I wouldn't take an entry yet because the price action is below the EMA line. All right. Another thing to note as well is the fact that we had a recent, this is essentially retracing itself back down. And the reason why is because the variance between the VWAP and the price action was too high. So if you see right here, 107 upwards to the top there, that was almost a full 8%. So that significant price difference between the price action and the VWAP line has to come crashing back down. It has to come at least retrace itself a little bit. I wouldn't say crashing down, that's probably the wrong terminology to use, but that's generally the concept, because when you see that deviation from the center line, then that's when it could essentially reverse itself. Okay, which is what you see here too. So just to further that with the VWAP lines here, you see these outer lines, top and bottom, that kind of tells us what the range is. Anything outside of that range, it could essentially turn itself around. So if you see this, it kind of holds it down, so to speak. And when it goes too far outside of that, the price almost always comes in and corrects itself. Okay, so I'm not surprised by seeing the price action where it's at right now. It's actually in very good shape still, but considering the fact that it ramped up like it did, it makes sense. It's kind of hovering around the price action where it's at. So again, moving forward, I do feel 120 to 160 is a good price range for Algorand, and I would say that at this point, if you're planning to take entry, wait until the price comes down, bounces off of VWAP, because the VWAP line will continue to increase, and the price will likely decrease since it's considered to be more bearish right now. Because again, to clarify, the EMA line works very similar to a moving average, a MACD, right? So if you're familiar with the moving average convergence divergence, that's working on its own plane as an oscillator, but this essentially works on the price action. So in my opinion, it works a little bit better, so you kind of understand more specifically, what side the price action should be on. So right now it's essentially bearish, so the price is getting pushed down, right? So for me to take entry, again, wait for the confirmation. In other words, wait for the price action to bounce off of the VWAP line. You want to see 2 solid green bars on the 15-minute chart, which is essentially 30 minutes of confirmation. It might seem like a crazy amount of time to wait, but I promise you it's worth it, because if you look back here and you see, this is what 15-minute confirmation looks like. 2 15-minute green bars. Had you taken entry here, see the price bounce off of the EMA, come shooting back up, you would have gotten a good, I think that was somewhere in the range of 7 to 10%, right? Again, easy to say right now, of course, because it's after the fact and the price went up. But generally speaking, if you look historically at price action, you can tell anytime you see the price come above EMA and VWAP line, you get that confirmation. It continues the direction you want to head, and then you get that confirmation of it bounces off the EMA lines, right? So you see that bounce, These are just things to pay attention to essentially try to understand when you're taking entry. And this is effective as a swing trader and a day trader. Okay, so you don't have to just be a day trader to use this. Use this as a swing trader to find a good entry point. Use the 4-hour chart and the 1-day chart to kind of get perspective on the big picture. But use the 15 with the VWAP and the EMA line to understand the best practice for taking good entry. Again, 2 solid green bars, which is a total of 30 minutes. closing in order above EMA and VWAP, you're almost always going to be in much better shape than if you weren't to utilize those fundamentals, if you will. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of cover that. So that's essentially what you're looking at there. So hopefully you did find benefit from this. If you do, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and just be on the lookout here. I'm actually going to have some signal groups moving forward, which are actually going to be helpful. It's going to be part of my premium membership through my Patreon account. But I also have a Discord and Telegram community. Feel free to reference that below as well. And let's just make sure we all get together, grow together, and learn together. Oh, one last thing. I do also plan to do live streams as well moving forward. I'll probably try to kick that off later this weekend. Okay, so be on the lookout for that, and it will be my first time, so hopefully it goes well and smooth without a hitch. You never know, though. All right, thanks again for your time. We'll see you all in the next video. Take care.